Hello and welcome back to Election Time News, your one-stop political summations, poll reviews, non-partisan predictions, and reviews in compilation of other political forecasters. Today is Tuesday, October 8th, 2024, and today I'll be doing the weekly presidential prediction map update. There are some changes this week, so make sure to watch the full video to see what's happening. If you like content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll be giving weekly updates on the presidential election prediction every single Tuesday, leading up to a video with my final prediction on the morning of Election Day, as well as periodic updates on Senate races. And I'll be live streaming election night, November 5th, starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time and ending at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time, or potentially later. I have a goal of 500 subscribers by Election Day, so help me get to that goal. Do me a favor and click on that bright red button. Also, make sure to join the Discord, get alerts when I upload, take part in an election simulation to test your prediction skills, and more. The link will be in the description. Now on to the video. So let's start off with the safe states for each candidate. With Trump first, we now have a new one. It was certain in my last one, but it is now characterized as safe. We're doing Alaska. I'm moving this from certain R to safe R due to no movement in the polling average anytime soon. I actually don't have a polling average right here, but no real movement in the polling average. And constant high polling for Trump. There's only been 3 polls with Trump in it. This one is Republican pollsters, so I generally somewhat discard those. We have +5 and then +9 that Harris is nowhere close to in the lead. And at this point, I think it's sufficient to say that it is gone for the Harris campaign. So I have moved it to safe, and so it goes safe on our map here. Now, of course, for the rest of it, there's no change. We still have Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except the 2nd Congressional District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, and their safe spot. Now, note that this is a probability map as opposed to a margin map, so make sure not to get those confused. So this is the chance that each candidate will win a state, as opposed to the margin by which they will win that state or region. They are slightly different. Now for Harris, for safe, we have the West Coast states of Washington, Oregon, California, and then we have Colorado, and a new one, we have New Mexico. I'm upgrading this one from certain to safe as well, as it even though it has little to no polling, it still has been polling very strong for Harris. 8.3 point lead, and has been polling 8, and then 10, 5, 7, 11, 7. So all of these are very high. The lowest one is Harris +5. So this is completely out of reach for the Trump campaign. There's no shot that he's going to be getting this election cycle. So as of now, it appears that New Mexico is an absolute safe bet. There's no chance that Trump's going to win it on election night, so I'm going to place it in the safe column. Now, of course, then there's also Hawaii, Illinois, New York, the entirety of New England minus New Hampshire and Maine, and then Maine's 1st Congressional District are going to go safe Democrat. So now we have 196 to 125 with these new additions for each. Next up are the certain states. So to start things off, I have moved up Florida from likely to certain for Trump. As looking at the polling here, we have Trump +6. This one's only Trump +2, but then these Democratic pollsters have Trump +4 and Trump +4, and then here 1,200 likely voters, Trump +5, 600 Trump +2, 600 Trump +1. These recent ones are 6 by active vote, but these 2 Trump +4, and then you have the polling average of Trump +4, and it's been very consistent for a long time, so I'm guessing it's probably going to be around 4.5 points or so on election night. But looking at my sheet here that I made, it's not completely done. I don't have margins in for all of them, but for chance of victory, I have them in. It moved up to certain with an 82.5% chance. I do 2.5% increments for the former president now, moving it out of the likely category. So that is now in certain for Donald Trump. The other certain states are going to be Ohio and Iowa. Now, I would move these up to safe, but some polling out of both states have shown a stutter in Trump's so-called steadfast lead. There's a few polls that might be a bit red flags, such as this Trump +3 one by the New York Times Siena College that was done about 3 weeks ago, which isn't too influential, but still, I'm going to take everything into consideration before I put them down as safe. And safe states are essentially states that I will call as soon as we get the first results. So there again, we have Trump +3, so that's going to hold that back a bit. And then here we have Trump +4 in Iowa, which happened in the beginning of September, which is going to have a bit less influence, but is still potentially slightly concerning. Now, again, this one is Republican, Trump +7, which is a bit concerning still to the Trump campaign. I have a feeling that Iowa's actually going to underperform how it had gone before. I think it's probably going to go close to like 6 points or so on election night, perhaps. But still, chance-wise, there's a very little chance. I have 85% for Trump on here, so it is certain. Some of them are certain, obviously, here. Certain states for Harris are going to be Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, and Maine's statewide contest. So, looking back at my sheet here, we have Minnesota 85% chance for Harris. It has been, she has an impressive lead. It's been contracting for a while. She used to have about a 9-point lead, but it's been dropping slowly. She doesn't even have a 6-point lead anymore. It's 5.5. So that's a slight concern to the Harris campaign, perhaps. But overall, I don't think that it's really any sign that she has any real shot of losing the state. It's just not enough to really have it in the safe column at this point in time. Basically the same thing for Virginia, as I actually don't have it up right now. But it had some slightly worse polling than was expected. Let me see if I'm going to just pull it up real quick. It's slightly worse polling than expected, 7.6 points. Now, Harris +11 +11, these are very good signs for the Harris campaign. That's a good sign that it might go up to safe very soon. Scrolling down to Virginia, I have it basically right on the cusp. Probably, yes, so 87.5% chance for Kamala Harris. That's almost safe. So there is Virginia and Minnesota. Moving on to New Hampshire now, we have a 6.7 point lead for Harris. I hate that it doesn't like to do that. Harris +11 right here. It's a very good poll for Kamala Harris. Relatively large sample size, but some of these New Hampshire polls are ridiculously large. Very impressive. Wide scope. Ends up being very precise due to it, so I appreciate that. So you have Harris +7, Harris +7, all through here. Harris +8, Harris +5. Somewhat canceling each other out. Harris +11, giving her a strong boost. But all in all, it ends up being, I believe I have it as 90%, 10%. So very, very likely. I'm actually going to move Virginia to 10% here. So 90 to 10. Right on the edge of safe. Both of them are very, very close. And then moving on to Maine. Of course, Maine's a bit weird and also doesn't have much polling. Here we have Harris +9. So, I mean, this one earlier, they actually had Harris +5 in Maine too. I don't think that's actually going to happen. This is the only poll that I'm really going to be basing it off of Trump +7. But we'll get to that in a bit. Maine, Harris +17 is ridiculously good, but looking here, Harris +9, that's a bit more on par for what we should see on election night. I do believe I have Maine down, yes, as certain 87.5% to 12.5%. So those are the certain states. For each likely states or candidate, for each candidate are very few. We just have Maine's 2nd congressional district, Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. Oops, I think yeah, there we go. Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, and then the state of Texas. Now, the state of Texas might surprise some of you, but I will get to it in a minute. First off, with the districts, Nebraska 2, I have a 77.5% chance. Based on the polling, I'm going to pull it up real quick. Give me a second, I'm going to close these other tabs. But Here we have Trump plus 11 in the statewide. So the state itself is obviously safe. But Nebraska 2, we have Harris plus 11. This was done a while ago. Harris plus 9, Harris plus 9, Harris plus 8, Harris plus 9. This was the New York Times Siena College. I think they did this completely nationwide. But September 24th through 26th. So that is relatively safely in that column. Now, again, I showed you Maine's 2nd congressional district. It was a bit for Trump, but now looking here at Texas, we have a 6.3% lead for Donald Trump, 7%, 5%, 5%, 5%, 6, 7, 5, 5, 6, 9, 6, 4, 10. Now this is a right-leaning, these are two left-leaning, so shifting by about a point or two to the right or so. That ends up being about 7, so 6.3% lead for Donald Trump. That's actually an improvement from his 2020 margin. So there's very little chance I see of Harris winning as of right now, but I think there is technically a bit of ground that she could make up. But I do have it, I have it right on the edge of likely. If it goes up at all, it will go to certain for the former president. Now, moving on next to lean states, we have Michigan. This is the only lean state that I have. All the others are tilt. So Michigan going up here, we have 62.5% chance for Kamala Harris, which is right on the edge of lean, and 37.5% for Donald Trump. Now, if 60% on the nose is actually tilt. So because 50% is obviously toss-up, and 100% is included in safe. So this is the lowest rating for lean that there is right now. It dropped down from a bit higher up from lean. Looking here at Michigan, we have 1.6% lead, but we have relatively... This is really what made my rating drop down. Trump plus 1, Trump plus 2. This is by Trafalgar Group, so this is probably closer to about even. But here we have Trump plus 1 for 1v1, and then even for full field. This one, Renfield and Wilton Strategies, Harris plus 2. Here we have Harris plus 3. Even plus 1, plus 3, plus 2. So none of these more recent ones are very good looking for the vice president. There's been a drop. She was ahead by almost 3% about a week and a half ago. But now she's been steadily decreasing since, which is a very bad sign for her. So actually, there's a chance that this might end up going tilt very soon. But it is currently still just barely lean. I have it going to Harris by 0.5 point to 3 points, but most likely about 1.5 points. That's how I have my predicted margin going, and then I'll set up my rating column in a bit. So then, of course, we have the tilt states, the 6 remaining states here. The 7 minus Michigan, of course, which is just barely lean for the vice president. Let's start off with Georgia. Now, Georgia I have as tilt Republican. Looking here at the odds, I have it 55-45 for Trump. He currently has a 1.1% lead, and these recent ones are looking very good for this one. 3,800 likely voters is a very large sample. So the fact that it's even and it's full field is actually a very good sign for Kamala Harris. But this small insider advantage one, these two with Atlas Intel are very confusing. I actually am going to not include Atlas Intel because of the confusing results that don't seem to line up with any demographic data that we have so far. Quinnipiac University is generally slightly errored. Now, whether it's to the right or to the left from each election season seems to vary. But looking here, Insider Advantage 800, even. This one, even. Morning Consult, which is slightly left-leaning, even. It's sponsored by Bloomberg, who I believe technically did a run for president in the primaries in 2016 for the Democrats, but he's not necessarily party affiliated. Even. So these very recent ones are relatively good for Kamala Harris, but still, it looks like Trump is probably holding out for a little while. The odds may drop a bit as things continue on if any of these states end up flipping. First, I think it probably is Georgia because of the retaining of the number of the black population that Kamala Harris is probably going to be able to do. So, if anything, Georgia is going to be the first one to flip blue. It is very close. I'd say probably, I do have it here, yeah, probably basically flatline to 1% for Donald Trump on election night. I'd say probably about 3/4 of a point or so, which is a bit more than Biden won it by in 2020, but not by all that much, and this may flip very soon. Next, moving on to North Carolina, I have it also as tilt red. Here, it's 55-45 as well. It is getting increasingly tight. It is the most fundamentally right-leaning and historically right-leaning generally out of the current swing states this cycle. Trump only has an 0.8 of a point lead here. And some recent polls, originally it was looking good, really good for Harris. Then things were looking bad again as Trump was getting traction. But now we have a new active vote poll that has Harris in the lead by 2 points. So this one by Intercenter Advantage has them even. This one, full field, has Trump only up by 2. So things may be turning back around for the Harris campaign. It may end up moving North Carolina back to the vice president's column, perhaps. But as of right now, I still do see it going red on election night. I don't have any margins here, I don't think, as of yet. Yeah, I don't. I'll get those in eventually, and I might do a video on that later in the week. But here, I don't see it going blue as of right now. If her odds do continue to improve, then we'll look into that. Now, also, on Poly Market, if you check, there's been a huge red wave overtaken that doesn't have any real data behind it to back it up. So I think what's going on is ambitious Republicans are betting on Donald Trump to win in a lot of these states. And so I don't think it accurately reflects the odds. So until that ends, I will not be using Poly Market in any videos. Just to let you all know. Now, moving on to the state of Pennsylvania. I have this one. I believe I actually have... No, I have it 52.5 to 47.5 Harris. That is the slimmest state I think I have out of any of them right now. Even closer than Wisconsin, actually, percentage-wise. And so Harris has a 7/10 of a point lead in Pennsylvania currently, but some of these are not looking also good. Now, of course, this one, Harris plus 1,000. Emerson College is okay. Trafalgar Group, of course, Republican-sponsored. Trump plus 2, so probably it's going to be closer to even. Patriot Polling, probably somewhat right-leaning. Trump plus 1. This one, even, sponsored by Republicans, so that one's probably good for Harris. So these two are generally good for Harris' campaign, all of these being close to even or on the nose. Not very precise, as we've had some Harris plus 5, Harris plus 6, Harris plus 6. These look very good for her campaign, but then things started to calm down again. Look at not very precise, as you can see, they're all over the board. But the accuracy we'll have to figure out later. But as of right now, I do still ever so narrowly have it going to the vice president. And with Wisconsin, we finish it off with a tilt Democratic state. I have it going a 55% chance for Harris, 45 for Trump, between 0 and 1.5 points, actually. And I say it's probably mostly go by about, probably closer to actually a point or so on election night. But which actually would increase, be better. Sorry, that would actually be better or so than Joe Biden did. I actually think that Wisconsin is one of the few states that Kamala Harris will actually do better than Joe Biden did in 2020, just because of how the overall growth in the suburban regions, also in Wisconsin, happens to generally be inhabited by lower educated people, which is generally the demographics that Republicans are doing better in. So that would counteract the growth in the Republican regions. The only issue is the urban cores, how they will hold out. But looking here, we have 1.6 points in the polls, which is actually even better than Michigan. And we have consistent Harris victories here. +4, +4, +4, +5, +2, +3, +2, +2, +4. Trump +1 from Trafalgar, and then Harris +1. So all of these are looking very good. Now, of course, we have Atlas Intel with Trump +2 and Trump +1. They are a Brazilian pollster, so take them with a handful of salt. But outside of Atlas Intel and Trafalgar Group, every single poll has Harris in the lead. So it's a very good sign for a campaign. I think the polling average is probably going to jump up relatively soon because of these numbers here. I'm not sure how far back the polling average takes into account. All of these are within the past 3 weeks. So now it's really just going to see how it continues from here. 55-45 for Kamala Harris, bringing her the victory on election night. So, but that doesn't mean that it's over. There are still 17 electoral votes left between Arizona and Nevada. And looking here at Arizona, I have it tilt red, 55-45 for the former president's favor. Now, looking here at the polling average, Trump has a 1.5 point lead currently. Trump +4, Trump +1, Trump +1. Here, this one, Harris +2, but it was only 500 likely voters, which is the least out of the last few. Atlas Intel only has Trump +1, but Morning Consult has Harris +3. These ones, Harris +2, Harris +3. She did very well this week, 19th to the 25th of September, but she actually almost had the lead at that point in time, but now Trump has pulled back ahead with the lead again in the state of Arizona. And I do see Republican pushback in the rest of the state. I see, again, Maricopa County actually getting a little bit bluer, but the rest of the state, I think, will get so much redder that it actually will end up counteracting the gains made in Maricopa County. And considering that while it is 60% of the state's population or so, I still think it will just end up getting overshadowed by the outside of the state shifting hard to the right, especially these heavily Democratic regions down here in the state that shifted by quite a few points, even from 2016 to 2020, while the rest of the nation moved to the left. So now wrapping things up with Nevada, I have it tilt blue, and looking here, we have 55-45 as well. Tilt, probably around 1.25 points, which is actually worse than Biden or Clinton did, as both of them won it by 2.4%. But looking at the polling average here, we generally, Nevada is one of the only few states where Democrats are actually underestimated in the polls, and Harris is ahead by a point in the polling average. One Trump +1 poll by Insider Advantage. Trending Politics has Trump up by 1, but then here, all of these other ones, some of these even Harris +6, Harris +7 by Morning Consult, Harris +3 with a Democracy Defense Project, which sounds a bit left-leaning. The Cook Political Report, Harris +1, Harris +1, Harris +4, Harris +1, Harris +4. So it's a bit all over the place. Again, not as precise as some of the other states, but Harris is still in the lead, and generally they tend to get slightly underestimated in the state of Nevada. So here I have it in Kamala's favor, 55-45%. So that finishes off our electoral map for the probabilities. Now, I will probably release a video going over the margins once I have it completely filled in. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos, especially including my election night live stream. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a fabulous rest of your day. 4 weeks until election night.